also at the CCAF. So the topic for today then, I'm going to be looking at fintech, and I'm going to be using the research, like I said, from the CCAF to talk about what's happening. And to be honest with you, despite global economic challenges, fintech has shown resilience. With customer adoption growing, with at least more than 50% of people globally adopting fintech innovation. And also, this has been driven by the demand from the consumers, but also by regulatory support. I talked about those innovation offices and regulatory sandboxes being introduced globally, and also technological advancements such as AI and open banking. But despite all these opportunities for fintech, through our research, we find that there is still some challenges. Fintechs are having, problems with regulatory issues in their countries, but also there are economic factors that are still impacting on fintech, in particular high inflation and funding challenges. So although fintech is growing, the adoption is growing, there's still challenges. So let's look at Nigeria. And from our research at the CCAF, we see that Nigeria is a key fintech hub. In SSA, it is the largest fintech market with innovations in peer-to-peer lending, mobile money, and equity crowdfunding, and so on. And Nigeria is among the few nations with frameworks for peer-to-peer lending and open banking, which is really great. And in particular, there's a strong focus on financial inclusion, and we see that through the mobile money and digital payment platforms, which are expanding financial access, especially for rural and underbanked populations. But yet, even in Nigeria, we still see some regulatory challenges and also a fragmented framework and some infrastructure barriers as well through our research. So one of the things we do at the CCF is we do conduct global research and we look at examples from other regions as well. So I'm going to share some of that sort of data from the APAC region itself, which stands for Asia Pacific countries. And we found that over 90% of jurisdictions in APAC have established regulatory frameworks for digital payments and e-money as well. And countries like India and Indonesia are at the forefront with tailored regulatory frameworks for P2P lending and digital finance innovation. India in particular has really been focused on digital transformation, and through its India Stack, which is a DPI, is a digital public infrastructure, and through their sort of programs have introduced, biometric data identity sort of framework. They've also got eKYC. They've got fast and efficient mobile payment system, the UPI system. They've got really good e-signature facilities, really strong document exchange opportunities through API and open data. So India is really paving the way and really using its DPI focus to improve financial inclusion. In fact, the data that's coming out is that in India, because of India Stack, because of all these different sort of facilities to support DPI in India, financial inclusion has increased to 80% of the population in just 6 years, instead of the projected 46 years. And that's what's happening in India in terms of its DPI infrastructure, because it's really focused on digital transformation. So Nigeria also has a DPI framework as well, and that includes things like the e-Naira. Also, the national identification number is also one of its key focus, and programs in Nigeria. But I wanted to stop there and maybe ask people in the room, because I know that you touched on DPI last week on your course, and I wanted to ask a question for us to have a discussion. So, what are the challenges faced with adopting a seamless DPI in Nigeria? What have you come across? What have you heard about? And how can we in Nigeria, be like India and pushing financial inclusion through DPI. So I'm going to, I think there is a need for us in Nigeria to really look at how we can, streamline our digital identity and payments regulations. That's going to be really helpful. We also need to look at how we can encourage public-private partnerships as well to really drive innovation in Nigeria. We also need to look at how we could expand the broadband access. I know there's a plan to do so, but we want to look at how we can expand that to rural areas. That's also going to be really important. And also, somebody mentioned this already, the need for digital literacy and financial literacy programs across the country, and also strengthening our data protection laws and cyber security. So you're all right. Those are the things that we need to focus on if we want to adopt a seamless digital public infrastructure in Nigeria. So thank you, everyone, for your answers and your comments. I really appreciate them. So going back to the research that we've been doing at the CCAF, we were looking at some of the challenges globally that fintechs are facing. And one area is licensing and registration. 28% of fintechs globally report challenges with regulatory approval, particularly in SSA and the MENA regions as well. When it comes to coordinating among authorities, 23% of fintechs face difficulties navigating between overlapping authorities, whether it's financial and telecom regulators, and this need for more collaboration and coordination between authorities in countries. And then inevitably this knowledge gap. In both MENA and SSA, 28% of fintechs struggle with insufficient expertise with regulatory bodies, emphasizing the need for consistent training. And this theme is coming up all the time, this need for training. And that's why we're here today, really to improve our knowledge. And that's something which is seen across the sector itself and with regulators. And some of the innovation that's coming in is regulatory sandboxes. And I mentioned earlier on that even within the CCAF, in our capstone projects that we've developed through our program, regulators have gone back to develop regulatory sandboxes in their jurisdiction. And we actually have a dashboard where at the CCAF, we're looking at the progress of regulatory sandboxes and innovation offices across the globe and see what's happening in all the different regions. And regulatory sandbox is a great example for regulatory innovation, and great examples come from Singapore and in the UK. The UK provides that benchmark for regulatory sandboxes. However, 37% of fintechs that we surveyed remain unsatisfied with sandbox structures. Some are saying that regulatory sandboxes are not working as well as they're envisaged to work. So that's something for us to bear in mind. Another exciting sort of regulatory innovation is open banking frameworks. It's enabling data sharing between financial institutions to foster innovation. And again, in the chat just now, some of you talked about that. And open banking frameworks are the way forward. In Nigeria is one of the SSA countries that's paving the way in this area as well. And 36% of the fintechs that we spoke with, they found open banking effective. So that's something that which is really encouraged, and which countries like India are really working with and pushing financial inclusion as a result of adopting open banking frameworks. So the solutions to regulatory challenges therefore include interoperability, because if we have fragmented systems across providers, that will create challenges in seamless financial integration. So the encouragement is that we push for API-based solutions and open banking standards to facilitate cross-platform data sharing and scalability. And that's one thing that we want to see, and we're encouraging jurisdictions to really work towards. In addition to that, regulatory harmonization is also a very important solution to the regulatory challenges faced across jurisdiction. So cross-border collaboration is key to overcoming those fragmented regulatory frameworks, particularly in APAC and SSA. And we want to encourage Nigeria and other SSA countries to look at ways to come together and collaborate and work on harmonizing their regulatory frameworks for impact. And a good example comes from the ASEAN region itself. And going into that, in terms of the ASEAN region, there's been a lot of developments in collaborative frameworks for regulatory harmonization in the ASEAN region, where we see cross-border fintech services, and as a result of that, improving financial inclusion. For instance, there's cross-border QR code payment systems between Thailand and Singapore, and there's plans for regional expansion going forwards. APIX is a collaborative, innovative platform for fintechs and innovators from across 90 plus countries, where APEX is there really to facilitate integration across the ASEAN markets itself. So what we are encouraging is that, like the ASEAN region, it's really important that Nigeria look at other countries where there could be opportunities for cross-border collaboration to really support fintech innovation and financial inclusion. Another thing that we're saying that is going to be really crucial and important for social impact is for more advocacy. And again, somebody else mentioned this earlier on in the chat, that we need to advocate for policies that are going to be targeting low-income, rural and female customers, and therefore drive financial inclusion. And I know that this is something which is on the agenda, even on this program itself, that you are pushing for that through the training and through the research that you're doing. And that's really important for regulators and policymakers to really embrace this approach and really focus on how we can provide bespoke training, bespoke programs for people in rural areas, female customers, and therefore really push and drive financial inclusion. Another focus should be on green and sustainable finance. So we need to look for opportunities for fintechs to contribute to green lending and sustainable bonds through regulatory incentives as well. And then most importantly, and we've mentioned this earlier on already, this push for data privacy and cybersecurity regulation, standardized cybersecurity and consumer protection regulations across the jurisdictions to build trust. These are the things we think are really necessary through our research that we're finding out to really support opportunities for social impact through regulation. So I'm now going to move on to AI, because AI is something which none of us can ignore anymore. It is becoming a transformative force in financial services, and it's offering capabilities in relation to fraud detection. It's using predictive analytics to help us to personalize financial products. It's also allowing for automated compliance processes. And the rapid advancement of generative AI is further really pushing the opportunities for regulators to really innovate and introduce RegTech to support financial services. And recently I was speaking to a Cambridge professor who said that generative AI is progressing so fast because it relies on data, that the progress it's making in terms of predictive analytics is so amazing that it's only going to get better. But at the same time, AI also introduces challenges like bias, for instance, job displacement challenges, as well as key ethical concerns. And all these issues must be carefully managed. But AI is here to stay. AI is really impacting on the financial services. But what is AI? And a lot of people ask this question, and I think maybe some of you may have this question as well in the room. And so this diagram here is just to give you a simple sort of definition or explanation of what AI is. So when we talk about AI, we start with the bottom here. We're looking at deep neural networks. It's a type of machine learning algorithms which have been designed to learn vast amount of data. And then the second layer in this diagram is the machine learning models, which have been created to take that data and predict things and predict what a human would write in a text. And then AI is really that subset of that. And AI is really the software with the ability to act like human beings. And NLP is just a branch of AI that enables machines to respond to human language itself, such as chatbots and robo-advisors. So for those of us in the room who are not clear about AI, simplest way is to say AI is just the software which has the ability to act like human beings itself. So I hope that helps in terms of the definition of AI. And in Nigeria, AI is being used by fintechs across the country. So we have, for instance, AI-based credit scoring models, which is enabling loans for populations that are lacking traditional credit histories. Companies are using alternative data such as mobile phone usage and social behavior through AI to generate AI-based credit scores. And that way, again, support the underserved populations and give them access to financial services. And a great example coming out of Nigeria is Carbon. It's a microfinance bank. They've recently launched a new AI banking platform for SMEs to really support SMEs with lending, using AI to do the credit scoring. So that's just one example of what AI can do and is doing to support financial inclusion. So there are challenges with AI, like I said earlier on. Data privacy and bias is a big challenge because AI models are seen to perpetuate biases and raise significant data privacy concerns as well. So we need to bear that in mind. Also in Nigeria, we have data protection frameworks, but these are evolving. And there's still challenges there. We need to look at how we can ensure data privacy when it comes to AI. And from our research at the CCAF, while in the APAC region, while 65% of jurisdictions have data protection framework, enforcement is still not even. There's still challenges with enforcement. Yet again, the key thing that we're finding, even when it comes to AI, is the skills gap. Many countries face challenges with the availability of the technical expertise needed to deploy AI-driven systems in the financial sector. So these are the challenges of AI implementation, but AI is here to stay, and we need to look at how we can use it to support our regulatory frameworks. So we should have AI-driven RegTech and supervisory technology to assist regulators in overseeing compliance, risk management, and fraud prevention. So in Nigeria, as an example, the Central Bank of Nigeria, for those of you who are from the CBN, I know you're looking into exploring AI to monitor risks in the growing fintech ecosystem, and that's from the research that we've done at the CCAF. Also in the APAC region, tools are being used in Singapore, in India, and other jurisdictions for real-time transaction monitoring, and especially for AML and fraud detection, because that's a real challenge for globe, not only in Nigeria, and we can use AI to really help us develop those regulatory frameworks. Singapore is a really good example, and in Singapore is paving the way as a global fintech hub, and I believe that Nigeria, we could emulate what Singapore is doing, and we are, as far as the SSA region is concerned, and AI is being used for fraud detection, for credit risk analysis, regulatory oversight, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore MAS is really promoting AI adoption through initiatives like some of the programs they have, like AI in Finance program. So we want to see the same thing in Nigeria as well. And again, one key message is collaboration, regional collaboration. MAS is doing that in Singapore, and the Nigerian institutions, those of you in the room, let's look at how we can encourage collaboration between institutions as well as regionally. So I'm going to be concluding now, and I want to come back again for us to have a bit of conversation. My message to the audience, to the room, is that we need to leverage AI and technology to expand financial access, to detect fraud and reduce corruption. We also need to collaborate. We need to work across agencies and industries to ensure ethical and transparent use of AI-driven systems. You're going to be doing your capstone projects in groups. Use this as an opportunity to collaborate and work together, even though you're from different institutions, to bring about solutions that you can go back and implement in your workplace and in your institutions. Also, another message is explore opportunities in open banking, in digital payments and AI-powered financial services for promoting inclusion. So if you're working on your capstone projects, think about these points that I've raised today. How can you bring that into your capstone project itself? And so I'm going to be ending with these two questions that we could discuss. The first one is, how can AI be effectively integrated into Nigeria's regulatory framework? That's the first question for us to talk about. And then the second one is, what strategies can stakeholders employ to address the skills gap and ensure AI adoption supports financial inclusion? So those are the two questions I want us to discuss with. First one is, how can we integrate AI? Second one is, what strategies do we need to use to address skills gap? So those are two questions. I'm going to stop talking